Chapter 15. Denials. Calysta opened her eyes. She was laying in her bed. She remembered fighting the hydra. Clover came to help, and she wielded the greatest weapon in the history of mankind. Calysta thought it was a wonderful dream, one definitely worth tales being told of.
Well, I don't know about the greatest weapon in the history of mankind, but I appreciate the praise.
Callie's voice rang through her mind, causing Calysta to bolt upright. "Callie?" Calysta asked, at a volume she didn't intend.
Shut up for 5 minutes,
Clover said. The scaled boy was lying in a pile of Callista's plethora of unused blankets next to her bed.
Be kind, Clover. She's not the one who sleep talks,
Varden said. The Fae was resting in a chair in the corner of the room. The man's eyes bore dark circles, and his face was pale. In lieu of a real response, Clover groaned and retracted into his cocoon of bedding, apparently choosing not to perceive the situation. Calysta smiled, happy to know that, despite the struggles, what had transpired hadn't just been a fantastical dream. "Does my mother know you two are here?" Calysta asked, sitting up. Her body burned from the aftermath of the battle. She felt each of her tired muscles, begging for rest, and each individual bruise she had endured.
I made some things up. I told her Clover was my partner and that you two had gotten into a scrape with some neighborhood youths.
Varden said, leaning his head back.
But then I had to dissuade her from calling the police. So I said that Clover taught them enough of a lesson. She seemed satisfied by that.
Varden finished. "Congratulations, Clover," Calysta said with the ghost of a smirk.
Are you still talking?
Clover's muffled voice came from within the den of blankets.
She said she would send us a pizza later, whatever that is.
Varden said, with uncertainty on clear display on his face.
Hopefully it isn't another boiling beverage.
Varden said with a sigh.
It wasn't boiling butterflies for brains.
Clover retorted back. The comment brought a smile to her and Varden. "Thanks again for coming to help us, Clover," Calysta said to the pile of blankets.
Well, I wasn't going to let you die before we figured out how to fix me.
Clover said, as he seemed to roll over. "We will. I'll get you back to normal in no time," Calysta said with a smile as she got out of bed.
Once things calm down, I'll ask my people for their wisdom on the subject. All are older than me, and their wisdom exceeds mine by an astronomical amount.
Varden said.
How many more beasts and mysterious threats will wake back up?
Clover asked, a seriousness seeping into his tone.
That's a complicated question.
Varden said, leaning back slightly.
Countless relics of the past quiver and stir beneath the earth, all waking at different rates. The tremors make it impossible to tell exactly how many, but the number is immense.
Varden said coolly.
And it's our weapons causing them to become active again?
Clover asked quickly.
That is correct.
Varden said with a nod.
Then couldn't we just sever our connection to them? Would they just go back to that other world?
Clover asked, flinching a little after his question.
That is an option that is available, the easiest and cleanest option. However, it would require the wielder and artifact to both consent to it. It also wouldn't fix your body. The effects of those weapons upon the earth would remain.
Varden elaborated. Calysta hated the thought of being parted from Callie, yet she knew it would be the option that would save the most lives.
Then that's what we should do, Calysta,
Clover said as he stood. The look in Clover's tired eyes was an intense and pure one, like molten iron upon the forge. Right, Calysta said with a nod. Clover stood in place, listening to one side of a conversation she wasn't privy to.
But why?
Clover asked defiantly. Calysta wondered if Graham wasn't complying with Clover's request of canceling their bond.
Graham, listen to me. It's for the best.
Clover began to sway so intensely in place that when he dropped to a knee, she was relieved, hopping out of her bed to help him.
I'll find another way to uphold my end of our deal.
Clover said pleadingly as he fell back onto the nest of blankets under him, a single tear rolling down his face as he was cast into the slumbering abyss. Calysta looked to Varden, wondering if the Clover collapsing into spontaneous sleeping fit was his doing. But the Fae seemed just as perplexed as she herself felt. But more than that, fear showed on his face. "Graham!" Calysta yelled out, glaring at the pendant around Clover's neck. "I know you can hear me. Why would you do that to Clover?" Calysta demanded, wondering if Callie had the same power over her consciousness.
No, and I've never met another weapon such as myself who can...
The fear and earnestness flooded their bond. She feared for Clover and feared Graham.
I have nothing to explain to you, hatchlings. The boy was frantic and passed out. Nothing more.
Malice oozed from his tone, leaving the room in a pregnant silence.
What deal was he speaking of?
Varden's tone was serious and full of a cold, barely restrained anger that almost made Calysta take a step back.
I don't see how that is relevant to you, fairy.
Graham retorted in a snide tone. If you don't tell us, Clover will, Calysta said pointedly.
Doubtful. He wasn't even set on saving your life until the very last possible moment. Isn't that right, wizard?
Calysta watched Varden move uncomfortably in his seat.
That's true.
Varden conceded. Calysta didn't see how it mattered how long it took Clover to make such a choice. All that mattered to her was that fact he chose to help.
This might be a harder problem to solve than we expected,
Callie said. Her feelings made it clear she both hated Graham and what he was doing to Clover.
Yet he did come to our aid, and as a result, we won the day.
Varden argued, echoing Callista's own thoughts on the topic.
Foolish to put your faith into those who hesitate to save you,
Graham said coldly. He only saved our lives, Scaly, Calysta said, annoyed. Graham thought so little of Clover. Silence was thick in the air until everyone was sure Graham was finished with his defamation of Clover's character.
This complicates the situation, but I'm not surprised.
Varden said with a sigh. Calysta wondered how she could free Clover of Graham's reach, wondered how to sever a toxic bond that restrained Clover so much. I wonder if what Graham offered him that was tempting enough for him to endure this, Calysta asked quietly.
If you were offered the ability to protect those close to you, to shield them from harm, wouldn't you take it?
Varden asked just as quietly, his head down. Putting herself in Clover's position, she very likely would have made the same decision. What else can break such a bond? Calysta asked, hoping the Fae had more answers.
Consensual cancellation of their bond, or death.
Varden said, with a tone of finality. There has to be another way, Calysta demanded. She refused to give Clover to such a monster.
If there was, I would have heard of it.
Varden said, sounded uncharacteristically irritable. Then what if we handle his end of the deal? Then Graham wouldn't have any use left for Clover, Calysta thought aloud.
We don't even know what Clover's end of the deal is, and judging from Graham's comments, it's incredibly likely he doesn't even know,
Varden said with a restrained harshness. Well, we can't let this go on. We aren't going to kill him, and we can't just wait for Graham to change his mind, Calysta stated. Clover saved her life. She wouldn't allow him to come to harm.
I know,
Varden shouted. Calysta quieted, having not expected such volume from Varden.
I suppose the option of quietly saving the Earth has left us. We will just have to handle everything that comes up until things quiet down. Then I will go to my people and seek help for Clover's various ailments. That's the best we can realistically do.
Varden's voice cracked a bit as he finished. What an unfair grouping of fates we have in this room, Callie said to Calysta in private. They wanted to help the two boys more than anything, but neither knew how they could be of service. A feeling of futility filled Calysta. Other than helping to vanquish the ancient evils rising to destroy the many regions of the world, she was unable to help the boys with anything. A knock on the front door signaled their pizza, and signaled that it was Callista's time to leave the room. Standing, she wondered what her story would entail. She had forgotten about the tragedy that hid within the old tales that she idealized, fantasied for herself, and now that she dwelled within one, she mourned for the misfortune imposed on those around her. Leaving the room, she looked back at Clover and Varden before she closed the door. It was true she couldn't save them from their unhappiness, but she wouldn't rest until their stories ended with happy endings.